I live with my boyfriend Jack in a little one-bedroom house we rent just outside Salem, Massachusetts. An old place, creaky pipes, uneven floorboards, and a draft in the kitchen window we keep forgetting to fix. It's not much, but it's ours. We split rent and chores and bad takeout. Most nights, we fall asleep to the sound of the neighbor's dog barking wildly at squirrels in the yard. Yeah, domestic bliss. Jack and I met in college, sophomore year at UMass Amherst. I was sitting in the back row of a medieval history lecture I was only taking for gen ed credit, doodling in the margins of my notebook. He was seated just in front of me and turned to ask if the professor always looked like he just woke up from a haunted nap. I laughed out loud. Long story short, we've practically been inseparable since then. He's originally from Barre, Vermont, real small town guy, grew up surrounded by trees, not people. He talks about it like it was equal parts boring and sacred. He still says soda instead of tonic, which drives my Boston-raised brain a little crazy. Jack's a freelance copywriter, mostly ad stuff for outdoor gear companies. I teach piano lessons part-time and work the counter at a restaurant in Marblehead. We both graduated into a rough job market and never really recovered, but we manage. Jack and I have been together for 3 years, moved in after 1 year together. We still argue over silly stuff, whose turn it is to take the compost bin out, who forgot to Venmo for utilities. But he makes me laugh when I least expect it, and there's something soft and decent in him I trust. Which is why this next part is so hard to explain. It was a Thursday night like any other. We'd eaten takeout sushi, washed down with cheap sake from the liquor store down the street. We settled in to binge watch one of Jack's shows, some true crime doc that had him hooked. Eventually, we shuffled to the bathroom to brush our teeth and wind down. The bathroom is tiny, barely enough space for the two of us. The paint under the sink is peeling, revealing a sad, cold blue that seems to suck warmth out of the room, no matter how hot the water gets. We stood side by side, the chipped mug with a faded whale on it, resting on the cracked porcelain sink. It was one of those moments that feels so normal, you forget it's even happening while it's happening. Until something breaks. Jack was on my left, humming softly, some tune I played for my student earlier that afternoon. I hadn't even realized I'd played it out loud enough for him to pick up the melody. I smiled and I winked at him through the mirror. Anyway, we were just going through the motions under the dim bathroom light when I glanced at the mirror and noticed Jack's reflection didn't quite keep up with him. It lagged just a fraction, barely there, but enough to make my stomach tighten. I blinked, shook my head, and told myself I must be seeing things or the poor lighting in the bathroom. Still, the feeling lingered. When he leaned forward to spit into the sink, his reflection stayed upright. It must have stayed there for a second, maybe 2. Then it caught up, like a bad video call buffering. I froze and looked at him directly, and he was fine. He didn't seem to notice that the mirror had lagged. Instead, he rinsed, dried his hands, kissed me on the cheek, and went to bed. Within 5 minutes, he was fast asleep, as always. I didn't tell Jack. I couldn't. I didn't even know how to start that conversation. Hey, babe, your reflection isn't syncing up with your body. Maybe you're haunted. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know how long I lay awake staring at the ceiling, completely puzzled by what I'd just seen. I just didn't know what to make of it. I thought about the hallucinogens I'd experimented with back in college, psilocybin once or twice, acid just the one time. Nothing intense, and of course cannabis, which I still use every once in a while. But still, maybe something was catching up with me. Maybe I'd cracked something open and forgotten to close it. Maybe something was coming back to haunt me. Or maybe I was losing my mind. Neither thought sat well with me. I mean, wow, pick your dilemma, right? That night, I barely slept. I told myself I imagined it. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the light hit it wrong. But it kept happening. During the following days, I started to watch him more closely. I'd catch him reaching for a coffee mug, And for a split second, I'd look at the window behind him just to make sure the reflection was doing the same thing. Most of the time it was, or at least close enough to pretend. But sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was off by half a beat, just enough to notice, just enough to make my stomach flip. Once I swear the reflection smiled before he did, like it knew what he was going to feel, like it was playing along. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, sleep-deprived, anxious, anything to convince myself there was a reasonable explanation for all the strange things I was seeing. I even Googled mirror lag to see if maybe it was a lighting thing or some optical glitch I didn't understand. I found a Reddit thread where someone said their mirror made people look too alive. I closed the tab and didn't sleep that night again. Jack didn't seem different. He still kissed me on the forehead when I was working. He still cracked dumb jokes during dinner, still cuddled with me in bed like everything was normal. 3 nights later, I saw it again, just out of sync. They were subtle and easy to miss, a smile too slow to catch up. Once I swear the reflection smiled when Jack wasn't smiling at me. Then there was the bathtub incident. We were fooling around in the tub together. It wasn't particularly romantic, just a spur-of-the-moment thing. The shower was sputtering, a thin spray, sounding all clogged up like it was begging to be replaced. Jack was standing in front of me. I was kneeling in front of him, caught up in the moment. When suddenly, the mirror above the sink, fogged with steam, caught my eye when I glanced up. At first, I just saw blurred shapes and soft colors, but then the fog seemed to thin and the reflection sharpened. I caught sight of Jack's face, but something was off. It took me a while to realize his reflection wasn't focused on me. The real Jack was looking down at me, but his reflection was staring straight ahead, right at the mirror, right at me. Then it did something I have never been able to shake since. It smiled. I froze up and blinked hard once as I watched the reflection's lips curl into a slow, unnatural smile. Not the smile Jack had, but the smile the mirror wanted me to see. My whole body tensed at the reflection's eyes, dark and unblinking, fixed on mine like a predator sizing up its prey. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I sprang up, slipped out of the tub, so
Maybe 10 seconds later, Jack turned the knob once and knocked. "Claire? What's going on?" He sounded confused. I leaned against the door, water soaking into the hardwood floor, trying to breathe like it was the only thing keeping me from losing my mind. Jack just stood there, on the other side of the door, like he wasn't sure if he should press the matter or let it go. My heartbeat was pounding so hard, he might as well have heard it on the other side of the door. "I'm okay, Jack. I just have the cramps," was all I could think of to say. That was the moment I stopped pretending this was just stress or sleep deprivation or some leftover college echo. Something was wrong, and I was the only one seeing it. A week after the bathtub incident, I refused to make excuses. I could no longer pretend everything was fine while his reflection seemed like it was trying to slip free of the glass. So I waited for Friday night. Jack always spent extra time in the bathroom after dinner, brushing meticulously, smoothing his hair as if preparing for photos. I knew I'd have a window of opportunity. "I have to finish some invoices," I said and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. My phone stayed in my hoodie pocket until I heard the bathroom faucet turn on. Then I placed it on the hall bookshelf, tilted just enough to catch the bathroom mirror through the half-open door. It felt absurd, like a found footage scene. But I just wanted confirmation, some reassurance that I wasn't crazy. Later that night, after Jack had gone to bed, I concealed myself in the darkened bathroom and pressed play. At first, everything seemed normal. Brushing, rinsing, gargling, running fingers through hair. But around the 2-minute mark, something shifted. Jack leaned forward, presumably reaching beneath the sink, but his reflection stayed perfectly upright, staring directly ahead. It turned its head slowly and locked eyes with the camera, as if sensing it was being recorded. It knew. It recognized me.
Then in an instant, the footage glitched. His reflection resynced, but I saw it clearly enough. That night, I claimed I felt unwell and camped out on the couch under a scratchy lavender-scented throw. Jack barely questioned it. He kissed my forehead, said, "Feel better soon," and retreated down the hallway. But I didn't feel better. I felt watched from behind the glass. I started avoiding mirrors entirely. I used the reflective oven door to get dressed, brushed my teeth with my back to the bathroom. I refused to check my face before work, afraid of what might flicker back. Jack didn't seem to notice, or perhaps he did and chose silence while tapping away at his laptop on the couch. I watched him, watching for signs of imbalance, but he seemed entirely normal. That night, I attempted to sleep in our bed. Around 3 a.m., I awoke with a deep sense of unease, like the room held a silent presence. I rolled over and saw Jack asleep beside me, but through the mirror across the room, I saw something else. His reflection sitting up in bed, eyes turned toward me. He didn't speak but held a finger to his lips in a chilling shh. The voice came from the mirror, gentle yet sinister. Then the reflection stepped out. No glass shattered, no noise. It creeped closer to the bed and hovered inches from my face, its eyes empty, watching me like prey. I dared not move. I closed my eyes, feeling minuscule and utterly defenseless. After what felt like an eternity, I heard a step retreat. I cracked my eyes and saw only the real Jack asleep beside me. No trace remained of that dreadful reflection. I stayed motionless until sunrise, praying for morning light to save me. The next morning, I left without explaining anything. I muttered a note about dropping something off at work, grabbed a small bag, clothes, laptop, cash, and my favorite sweater, and drove to a nearby CVS. My hands shook so badly, I had to wait before starting the car. I called Leia, Jack's older sister, the only person I trusted. She answered on the second ring. "Claire, are you okay?" she asked softly. I stumbled through telling her enough. Something was terribly wrong with Jack, the house, or my mind. She listened, then said quietly, "You're okay. You're safe, right?" I lied and managed, "Yeah, has he ever been bothered by mirrors?" After silence, Leia confirmed. When Jack was 6 or 7, he had night terrors about his reflection. He once stood transfixed in front of a mirror. His words back then still haunt me. "The boy in the mirror is right where he belongs." After that, Leia said, he changed from shy and quiet to joking and extroverted overnight, like someone flipped a switch. She described his transformation as unsettling, as if he began performing a role that felt unnatural. She ended by saying, "Sometimes I wonder if the Jack we know is the real one, or if his reflection swapped places." Her words hit like a blow. That evening, I packed quietly, finding Jack in the kitchen reheating leftovers. He looked tired and asked, "You were out for a while?" "I had to fill in at work unexpectedly," I lied. I gathered my bag from the hall shelves. Jack came into view, barefoot, holding a glass of water, and confused. "Are you going somewhere?" He didn't sound angry, just puzzled in his usual caring way. My throat closed. I wanted to say how much I loved him, the person I fell in love with, not this version that hid in mirrors. But then I noticed his reflection in the hallway mirror seemed to shift, as if trying to break through. I managed a softly forced, "I just need some air." He said, "I'll keep the porch light on." I exited into evening's cool air. His door clicked softly behind me. I drove away in silence, knowing no turning back was possible. Nearly a week later, Jack sent brief messages. "Miss you. Let me know you're okay." I draft responses, then delete them. I miss him, but every thought of returning dredges up that mirror. Now I catch my own reflection blinking late, a delayed smile. I've even seen my hand move before it did. I avoid reflective surfaces, carry a phone with the screen off to wash my face, brush my teeth with my eyes closed, steer clear of mirrors at work. Sometimes I still hear it. Shh. Tonight, I drove past our house. The porch light still glowed. I almost stopped. I thought I saw him, or the other presidents, standing, motionless in the window. But something inside me shifted. I knew what I saw wasn't entirely him. I kept driving. I realize now I can never treat mirrors the same way again. I can never unsee what I saw. It's been almost 2 weeks now since I left the house. I sleep on the worn-out couch in Leia's guest room, the walls covered in old Dan posters and faded Polaroids from her high school days. She's tried her best to make me feel safe. She leaves the hall light on at night and checks in when she notices my hands shaking at breakfast. But even here, the feeling follows me. Sometimes I wake up with the same cold dread pressing against my chest, like something is watching from behind my closed eyelids. Once, I caught myself in Leia's bedroom mirror, and for a moment, just a breath of a second, my reflection was still smiling after I had stopped. I told myself it was nothing, but deep down, I knew better. On a quiet Sunday morning, while Leia was out grocery shopping, I found myself scrolling aimlessly through old photo albums Jack and I had shared on Google Drive. There he was, grinning awkwardly at a hiking trail, posing beside me at the aquarium, asleep on the couch surrounded by textbooks. But one thing began to bother me the more I looked. In so many of the candid shots, his reflection in glass doors, windows, and shiny countertops, it didn't quite match. Most people wouldn't notice, but now I couldn't unsee it. The angle of the head slightly off, the smile coming half a second too late, the eye staring directly at the camera even when Jack's gaze was somewhere else entirely. Had it always been this way? Had I been living with a stranger longer than I realized?
A question began gnawing at me in the dead of night. What if Jack's still in there, trapped behind the glass? And if he is, could I somehow bring him back? The idea frightened me as much as it tempted me. The thought of opening whatever door existed between our world and that cold, reflective other side seemed reckless, foolish, and yet leaving him trapped felt worse. I began researching. Old folklore about mirrors being portals, tales of spirits swapping places with the living, strange superstitions I'd heard growing up but never believed. Most were half-baked myths, stories passed down to keep children from breaking mirrors or wandering around at night. But a few accounts felt eerily familiar. People who described loved ones shifting slightly, their reflections behaving just a little too independently. Some spoke of rituals, dangerous ones, meant to balance the threshold, as they called it. I didn't know if I had the courage to try, but doing nothing, that felt worse. Against my better judgment, I went back. I told Leia I needed to clear my head and left before she could stop me. My car idled in the driveway of our little house for nearly 10 minutes. The porch light was still on, just like Jack promised. I unlocked the front door. The house smelled like him. Detergent, old books, and takeout containers. For a fleeting second, I let myself pretend everything was fine. "Jack?" I called out softly. Silence. Then from the back room, "Claire?" He sounded normal, but now I knew better than to trust voices. He appeared in the hallway, barefoot, sleepy-eyed, rubbing his hair like he always did when he just woke up. "You came back," he whispered. My heart ached at the familiarity of it. I wanted to run to him, to believe this was the man I loved, but I watched the mirror behind him carefully. His body stayed still, but the reflection smiled first. That night, when Jack fell asleep, I stood alone in the bathroom where it all began. The mirror stared back at me, calm and still. I lit a single candle, the only light in the room. I spoke aloud, not to my reflection, but to whatever watched from behind it. "If you're listening, bring him back." The mirror stayed quiet, but the air grew colder. I stepped closer. My reflection didn't follow. It just watched. "I know you're there. I know you've taken something that's not yours." A faint tapping sound echoed from behind the glass. Once, twice, like fingers drumming on a window pane. Then, without warning, the reflection smiled and spoke. "You opened the door, Claire. Are you sure you want to know what's on the other side?"
The lights flickered. The floor felt distant beneath my feet. And for a brief, terrible moment, I saw beyond the glass. It wasn't a reflection. It was a world. A dark, endless version of our own. Silent streets, frozen trees, a sky the color of rust. And there, trapped inside that place, was Jack. He wasn't calling out. He wasn't even moving. Just standing there, watching through the other side of the glass, eyes wide with fear. But something else stood beside him. An imitation of Jack, smiling, waving gently through the mirror, wearing his face like a mask. I stumbled backward. The image shattered. I was back in the bathroom, heart racing, candle blown out. Now I knew the truth. Jack was trapped. The thing living in my house was not him. But how do you save someone from behind a mirror? How do you trade places with a shadow? I sit here, writing this, trying to decide if I'm brave or foolish enough to go back into that room, open the door again, and offer myself in his place. Because the longer I wait, the more I feel my own reflection growing restless. And I fear if I don't act soon, I'll lose myself too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, tracing my fingers along the cracks in the table, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator, the only sound that reminded me I was still in the real world. My reflection in the window stared back, faint and distant, as if waiting for me to make a move. I thought of Jack, wherever he was, standing alone in that dark, frozen world beyond the mirror, and something in me broke. I couldn't leave him there, not without trying. As dawn broke, casting a pale light across the kitchen floor, I stood and walked back into the bathroom, this time without fear, only resolve. I lit the candle again and faced the mirror, my voice steady but quiet, like I was speaking across a great distance. "Take me instead," I whispered. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the mirror rippled like water, and I felt the cold wrap around my wrists, pulling gently but firmly. My reflection smiled, not in menace, but in something almost thankful. I closed my eyes as the cold swallowed me whole, and when I opened them, the world was silent. I stood in a mirror image of our house, but everything was wrong. The colors were dull, the air thick and still. I turned, and there was Jack, standing where I had seen him, eyes wide in disbelief. "Claire?" he said, his voice cracking. I nodded, tears spilling down my face. "It's okay, you're free now." He stepped forward, confused, hesitant. I grabbed his hands and guided him toward the surface of the mirror, the only place where light still shimmered. "Go," I said, "before it changes its mind." He tried to protest, but the shadows stirred and we both knew time was running out. I gave him one last smile, the same one I gave him the first time we met. And then I pushed him through the glass. I watched as he stumbled into the real world, collapsing on the bathroom floor, gasping for air. And then the mirror hardened again, sealing me in. I turned around slowly, feeling the weight of that silent world press against my chest, alone. But then, from the far side of the room, a figure stepped forward, my reflection, or maybe the reflection of who I used to be. It smiled, tilted its head, and spoke in a voice like mine, but colder. "Now what do we do with you?" it asked. And I realized then that freeing Jack was only the beginning, because now, trapped in this glass world, I would have to face myself, and all the things I had never dared to confront. The endless quiet stretched before me like an empty road, and somewhere deep in the shadows, something waited, patient and smiling, ready to play its next game. The quiet wasn't empty, it was alive. At first, I thought it was just the silence of this place settling into my bones, but soon I realized it was listening. Every breath I took, every step I made across the faded, cracked tiles echoed into something that responded in kind, a faint hum beneath my skin, like unseen eyes blinking awake. The house around me looked like ours, but wrong in ways that made my stomach twist. Books on the shelves with titles I couldn't read, family photos where faces were blurred, and the soft scent of Jack's cologne warped into something metallic and cold. The reflection of myself, that copy that wasn't quite me, followed me through the rooms without footsteps, smiling faintly as though it knew every thought slipping through my head before I thought it. It spoke less and watched more, letting my own dread grow louder than its words ever could. And when I tried to escape, through the front door, the windows, the cracks between the floorboards, I found myself always walking back into the same room, trapped in a loop that made time fold over itself like a suffocating blanket. I tried breaking the mirrors, each one splintered with a soundless shatter, but in every shard, there I was, multiplied, fractured, each copy grinning wider than the last. Hunger gnawed at me, but no food existed in this place. Thirst burned my throat, but the taps ran dry. Sleep tried to claim me, but when I closed my eyes, I found myself awake again, standing exactly where I had been before, as if rest itself had been stolen from me. Worse still, sometimes I heard Jack's voice, faint, distant, laughing in another world, and I wondered if he ever looked into the bathroom mirror and saw me staring back, waiting for help that would never come. The other me, the one who followed but never spoke unless it wanted to, finally broke the silence one night as I sat curled in the corner of what used to be our bedroom. It knelt beside me, brushed the lock of hair from my face in a mockery of comfort, and whispered, "You gave yourself away so easily. Why should anyone come looking for you?" Its voice carried echoes of my own doubts, my own fears, twisted and sharpened until they cut deep. I tried not to believe it. I tried to tell myself Jack would find a way back for me. But doubt crept in through the cracks in my hope, and the longer I stayed in this place, the more I felt myself changing, my thoughts slowing, my memories fading like old photographs left in the sun. I couldn't even remember the sound of my mother's voice, the smell of rain on pavement, the laughter of my friends. This place was stripping me bare, piece by piece, until only the fear remained. And one day, I caught my reflection smiling at me, not with malice, but with pity. It said, "You'll get used to it. They all do." That's when I noticed the other reflections in the dark corners of the house. Not just mine, but countless others. Pale, silent figures trapped behind glass, watching me with hollow eyes. Some were recent, some old beyond measure, their faces blurred with the weight of forgotten years. I was not the first, and I knew then I would not be the last. This house, this place, this mirror world, it was a prison built by those who stared too long into the glass and found something staring back. And the only thing worse than being trapped here was the realization that maybe, just maybe, the thing on the other side, the one wearing my face in the world I left behind, was doing a better job of living my life than I ever did. Maybe no one would notice I was gone. Maybe Jack wouldn't want me back at all. But some small part of me refused to give in. A quiet voice, worn thin, but still mine, whispered that giving up meant letting this place win. I spent what felt like days, or maybe hours. Time slipped away from me, walking the house again and again, tracing my fingertips along the cold glass walls, trying to find something, anything, out of place. And then, one night, when the air felt colder and stiller than usual, I heard a crack. Not a loud, shattering break, but a soft fracture, like ice thawing beneath winter's weight. I followed the sound through the empty halls until I found the old bathroom mirror, my mirror, the place where it all began. In its surface, my reflection stared back at me. But this time, it didn't smile. It didn't mock me. It looked just as tired, just as lost as I felt. And for the first time, I wondered, maybe the reflection was trapped too. Maybe it wasn't just an enemy. It was another prisoner. I placed my hand against the glass, and for a fleeting second, I felt warmth instead of cold, a flicker of something human, something alive. And then the cracks spread wider across the mirror surface. Through it, I glimpsed something unexpected. Jack. He was standing in our bathroom, pale and shaken, staring into the mirror. His eyes searched for me. I tried to call out, to pound on the glass, but no sound crossed the divide. But he saw me. I could see it in the way his face changed. Hope, disbelief, terror, all at once. He raised his hand to the glass. I pressed mine to match. And then from the darkness beside me, the other me stepped forward, frowning, like a warden finding a prisoner digging a tunnel out of their cell. It shook its head slowly, almost sadly, and whispered, "This is your home now." But I wasn't ready to accept that. I wasn't ready to give up. I looked back at Jack and mouthed one word: help. I don't know what he saw or if he understood, but his hand clenched into a fist, and before the reflection beside me could stop him, he punched the mirror with all his strength. The glass exploded into 1,000 shards, and for a moment, I felt weightless, like falling through water, like being torn between two worlds. The reflection beside me screamed, its voice splitting the air like a siren, but I didn't look back. I reached through the shards, through the crackling air, and found Jack's hand pulling me forward, dragging me out of the cold and into the warmth of our tiny, broken bathroom. I collapsed onto the tile floor, gasping like I hadn't breathed real air in years. Jack was there, holding me, shaking, repeating my name over and over, like he was afraid I might vanish again. For a long time, neither of us spoke. We just sat there, surrounded by broken glass and dust, clinging to each other in the pale morning light. But even then, as relief washed over me, I couldn't help but glance at the shards of mirrors scattered across the floor. In one of them, just for a heartbeat, I thought I saw it, my reflection, still trapped on the other side, watching. And though it didn't smile, though it didn't move, I knew. I knew it was still there, waiting, maybe forever. Jack helped me up, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt real again, solid. But as we taped cardboard over the broken mirror frame, sealing it away, a single terrible thought lingered in the back of my mind. Mirrors don't break forever. Glass can be replaced, and someday, someone else might look too closely. And the thing on the other side, the one wearing my face in the world I left behind, it'd still be waiting, just like it waited for me. For a few weeks, life felt almost normal again. Jack and I spoke little of what happened. It hung between us like an old cobweb no one dared brush away. We covered the bathroom mirror with plywood and threw the shards into a dumpster across town, far from our home. I stopped glancing at reflections in windows, stopped searching for signs of something lurking behind the glass. But some nights, when the wind slipped through the cracks of our little house and the floorboards creaked for no reason, I could feel it, a presence, quiet but patient. One evening, Jack left for the grocery store and the house felt emptier than usual. I wandered through the living room, absently wiping down surfaces, pretending the silence didn't bother me. And then, from the corner of my eye, I caught it. In the black screen of the old TV, my reflection, smiling. Not waving, not moving, just smiling. I froze. Slowly its head tilted, just slightly, in a way I hadn't moved. I blinked, and in that moment, the screen went dark again, empty and still. I told myself it was a trick of the light, exhaustion, anything but the truth, but as I turned away, every reflective surface I passed, window panes, picture frames, polished kettle, flickered, as if something just barely missed pulling itself through. That night, I couldn't sleep. Jack was beside me, breathing steady, unaware of the chill creeping across the room. And somewhere in the house, beneath the floorboards or beyond the walls, I heard it. The faint tap, tap, tap of fingers against glass. Patient, rhythmic, waiting. I buried my face in the pillow and told myself it was just the wind. But deep down, I knew better. You can cover a mirror, you can smash the glass, but you can't unsee what's waiting on the other side. And sooner or later, it finds a crack and slips back through.